Let's.
Are we live?
Wait.
Are we?
We
Hold on. Oh god.
we should be live.
Are you sure?
I'm somewhat sure. Hi guys. Welcome to
Oh.
another episode of Random Respawn, where we talk about gaming news, gaming things, and gaming stuff. I'm Josh Raptor.
Whoa.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yep, I can hear you.
Are we introducing ourselves, or are you introducing us?
No, so
'Cause-
you guys stopped kind of moving, and I couldn't find my mouse on the screen, so I thought my computer was about to shut off, and so that's
was
kind
about
of
to
why
say, hopefully-
I trailed off, and then kind of got really confused and paranoid, and then you guys were silent, and I was like,
I
it's
kinda
crashing,
went- I
the
had a
computer's
little bit of a
crashing,
deer in
and
the
that was
headlights
it.
moment
God.
because I'm like,
No.
wait, am I supposed to do something? I'm confused.
No, I thought that everything was lost. But okay, so
That's
back to let me introduce everyone. As I said, I'm Josh Raptor. That's
Are
Calebite.
you sure you are?
And there's Grand Marshal. We apologize for our week hiatus, especially to you, Wallace. Hello, my friend. Glad to be back. We were all in
Together.
Savannah together. Sorry, Marshall and I are coming over colds. So although we were all together,
Yeah.
we just didn't have all the equipment, but we did do something else that I'm excited to share with everyone when that's done. So you guys will see
I'm
that.
very excited how the editing process is going on that.
Right. So on this week, Marshall and I have been playing a lot of the newest God of War, and so this kind of sparked this topic, and it was which games have the best fighting mechanics. There's another podcast where I think all three of us will go much deeper into what we thought of God of War.
Oh yeah.
But until then, this kind of seemed like a really good idea to just talk about games with great kind of like fighting mechanics, but not necessarily like a fighting game, although those could certainly fall into this category. But I think we want more, I would say, quote unquote, battle mechanics. So more in-game fights, and whether or not I would say, well, it depends on what you guys decide to bring up. But that's kind of the general idea for this topic.
Yeah.
But
Huzzah.
yeah, so Marsh,
Hold
do
on.
you,
But before we
okay.
say anything, can I just get this out of my system?
it's gonna be something about God of War.
It's going to
Boy.
Boy, yes,
Sorry. I just boy.
boy.
I've been hearing that for like the past week now, and it's like I can't get that out of my head.
Boy.
Boy.
He does say boy.
He
all
says
the time.
boy most of the time, and then also just as equally, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
What's he want? What's he want? I don't know.
I
It's
don't
pretty great.
know.
I
I got
know.
it. You don't know.
It's like, okay.
So do either of you guys want to start off? I've got one game in mind that I think is somewhat a camera obscura, but I wanted to save that for a quick moment. I didn't want to start off with that, but
You wanted to save it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If anything, Caleb, you could go ahead and start off. just
Sure.
because this was
I'll
kind
start
of
off. So
technically
one-
your idea.
So a game that I've been playing lately that's, well, lately-ish. We've talked about it a little bit on the stream, but Warhammer Vermintide 2, I think, has an interesting kind of combat system into that game because we've seen first-person. It's a first-person game, and it's primarily focused on melee combat. It does have some ranged. So there is some ranged combat and some like special ability type things. But what I like about it is that there's a little bit of focus on the melee combat, but not so much that it's like you really need to target specific limbs with specific kinds of attacks. It's not overly complicated. Like I don't know if you, I know you guys have played it, but anyone on stream, Chivalry was a
Yes.
first-person
yeah.
multiplayer game, and I felt like the melee combat just always felt awkward in that because you've got one button for one kind of swing, another for another kind of swing, and then a third for like your poke. So you've got all of these different buttons that you're doing, which gives you a lot of control over what kind of attacks you're doing. But it makes the combat feel, to me, I never really felt natural with it. Whereas with Vermintide, it has one button for attack. You've got slash, and then you can charge that, or you can just swing it normally. And each of the different weapon types that the different characters can get, and each character has a different set of weapons. So there's like, say there's 4 weapons that you can get as the dwarf. There's 4 different weapons as the mercenary, 4 different as the elf. So, you know, there's a decent variety of weapons throughout all the different characters. And each of those weapons has a combo string with doing light attacks or doing charge attacks. And you can alternate between the two. So you can do a light, and then if you're quick, quick and do a combo, it's a light, and then it goes in, then you can hold it and go into a charge. So you'll do the second move in the charge combo. And then the third thing that adds a little bit of complexity to it is blocking. So with blocking, you can actually just like tap it and cancel the combo that you're in to restart it. So if you have a move that is a really good overhead, or maybe pierces armor on the first swing of a combo for a weapon, and you just need to do that a bunch, you can swing once, click to like block and drop it and swing again. And it's not like really slow and clunky. It happens really fast, but it adds a lot of extra depth and layer into a first person melee combat system that isn't overly complicated for someone who just wants to play the game at a lower level and spam left trigger or left click and, slash things. They can do that. But there's a little bit of extra finesse that's worked into it for people who are more conscientious about what they're doing or playing at a higher level and need to be more focused on what specific swings, what types of things they're doing, because there are moves that are better for swinging into a crowd control and those that are target head, and there is headshot damage in the game, so like sometimes that matters. So it's just lots of interesting things in a first person perspective that I feel works really well and flows really well. And so that's one of the things that impressed me about that game.
I love the fact that you went so into detail about the melee system, and the whole time I'm like, I just use the shotgun in that game and blow everyone away because that's just what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Because it's so good.
The thing that I think it was Chivalry that always annoyed me the most was that a typical medieval setup is you would have the sword in your right hand and the shield in your left hand, but you would have to left click to swing the sword in your right hand, and I think right click to block with the shield in your left hand.
Say, Josh, that you could change which one it was your main hand in the options in that game. I can't remember those.
I don't remember. I mean, it's been so the last somewhat Chivalry game that we played was Arcane Magic, or that game
which
that
was by the devs and that died.
which
It
was
literally
not
died.
fun at all.
Yeah.
The only game that basically is going to bring that style back of Chivalry is by a bunch of guys who left Torn Banner and just decided to continue on and improve on that combat from Chivalry, and they're making a game called Mordhau, Mordhau, I think it's called.
yeah, it looks like
And-
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the thing
That
is
was that was the game that you sent us the trailer for it, and it was like 12, or it was
12 minutes.
Yeah, it was 12
Oh,
minutes.
12
and it
oh,
felt
and it
so
just kept
long.
going. The
hour.
problem with
It
that
was
game is that game's
so
been in
slow.
like beta or whatever forever.
And
I
it
don't
looks
know when
exactly like Chivalry. It's
Right.
like, oh, okay, we left Torn Banner
I
to make
know,
another
but
game like
that's-
Chivalry, and by another game like Chivalry, I mean just Chivalry again.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
didn't
pretty
look
much.
good at all. So I'm like, yeah.
As much as I love Chivalry, like that game is old now, and so like
It's like I'm kind of done like with the realistic combat like the thing with
I get
Vermintide
that,
is
yeah.
that it's very fantastical, and
it's
like
arcadey though.
right, it's very arcadey, and it's
Right.
very like fantastic. Like, you can actually slice off an arm of something, and then it's kind of fun and over the top. Whereas Chivalry
You're
is
finding a bunch of like rat people.
right. Chivalry was definitely over the top. Don't get me wrong, but it was kind of like
Right.
2 hits and you're dead, kind of thing. And so, basically, if you had someone with arrows, you couldn't really get close to them. Or if you had really long pokey stick, sometimes that gave you a kind of severe advantage. I mean, Marshall and I used to play a lot, and I really did enjoy it. But I feel like that was like a phase in my life that I don't really feel like
Yes.
revisiting right now.
I completely understand. And thinking about just the combat of Vermintide 2 makes me think that it's like I really enjoy it because of how simple it is, if that makes sense, where
Right.
there is some depth to it, but it's not overly complicated. It's not like trying to go super ham into what it needs to do. It's just there, and it's fun. And it reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you guys ever played Chronicles of Riddick Escape from Butcher Bay.
I did
Where
not,
that-
but it
that
is
game-
a well-loved game by all.
Yes,
It is.
that game heavily focused on melee, and it reminds me a lot of that game in terms of kind of its combat. And again, it's not super in depth, but it's fun. And thinking about it even more of Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, that combat system is actually super flashy, but there's actually not a lot to it. You have your combos, and they're not a lot of combos. They're pretty button mashy, and then you've got your counter, and that's kind of it. Like that's all you really need, and
Yeah,
it's so much fun.
yeah, I really appreciate that. I mean, that was the main point I was trying to make with Vermintide is it is complex if you want to if you want to spend the time to learn it and really care about it, but it isn't complex to the point where everyone has to learn how complex the system is. Like it feels like some games put in this combat system or these ideas and like, oh, it's so complicated. Like we love it. We want everyone to learn this awesome complicated thing that we made, and it can just, if you don't love it the first time you start as a player or it's not interesting to you, it just completely turns you off from the game. But with something like this in Vermintide, I think it's a really well executed combat system because it is simple. I mean, you start the game up and you're like, oh, what do I do? I slash. Okay, we slash. We keep slashing, and you can figure out pretty quickly that like you have a couple different like you have.
Swing the chain. What
If
are
I
you doing?
if I
Swing the
slash
chain.
1, 2, 3, it changes my attacks change, and you figure out you've got a charge, and that's good enough to get you through most of the game for a while, and then you can start to add in some of the other like dodging back and forth to give your spacing, and then the blocking to keep your like to do specific kinds of chains. Like you can continue to build onto it to make a more complex and versatile system that is ultimately one button or two buttons if you count the block.
I think
So
that's
it's
why
like,
Left 4 Dead did so well back in the day. It's simply because the gun variety, not a whole lot, enemy variety, not a whole lot, but it was just simple enough. You have 4 people, get from point A to point B, and don't die, and
yeah.
go.
And
Go
see,
have
I
fun.
like the design of Left 4 Dead, but that's actually another reason why I wanted to bring up Vermintide is I didn't enjoy playing Left 4 Dead as much as I do Vermintide because the main combat in Left 4 Dead is guns, and the gunplay
Shoot the
wasn't
gun.
really that fun. Like the guns didn't feel that great. It all like just everything about the gunplay in that game wasn't that fantastic. Didn't feel great, and the melee combat in Vermintide feels really good. It feels great to chop some little rat dude's head off,
Oh
or
yeah,
just like the
totally.
combat. It just it's weighty or meaty, and it feels fun to play and engaging. And I didn't love the constant hordes and just like spraying bullets into them, not really caring about where you're aiming, not really engaged too much. I did like the multiplayer monsters bit of Left
Yeah,
4 Dead, but the combat itself, it felt like was pretty lackluster. So I've been
I get it.
impressed with Vermintide.
Speaking of Left 4 Dead, like if because of how disinterested you were about the gunplay, um, would you then be possibly still be excited for something like GTFO, which will probably be coming out later this year? And for those who don't know what that is, it's by a bunch of devs who left the dev team of Payday 2, and before the whole microtransaction shenanigans hit, and they're like, no, we're out. And so they decided to make their own thing. Um, and one of the big things that they're doing with that game is it's kind of like a mix between Left 4 Dead, where you have this horde of creepy ass mutation people, and then also what appears to be Payday, where you're going down into these horrible areas to go get loot. And it seems like a very good mix of the two just from the first trailer we have seen, and then a 3-second GIF of combat, and that's literally the only thing we have seen of that game. But
Yeah.
if it was that where you do have kind of that gunplay, but you also have like skill trees and stuff like that of Payday, and then loot, would you still then be interested?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, even if the gunplay isn't that great in GTFO, the fact that it is bringing other things to it, like the main thing that Left 4 Dead brought to the table was the multiplayer aspect and like people surviving and then being put up against other players as the monsters. That was the big thing. It wasn't the gunplay, and so in GTFO it might be something similar. Maybe the gunplay is great, maybe it's not that great, but the fun factor is going in and getting loot or doing what these other things are. And I imagine, just from what we've seen and know, it looks like it's interesting to me at least. So I mean, yeah, even subpar gunplay, I'm still interested in that kind of game because its main focus isn't really combat.
Yeah.
So yeah. Just wanted to give a quick hello to Angry Daniel and Kenny. Welcome, guys.
Yeah, there's something that I'm working on very, very soon, Angry Daniel. Very soon. That will I like once when I kind of start doing it, then everyone will know. But yeah, so far the podcasts have been our main new thing to upload. But enough with Vermintide, dear God.
As much as we harp on that game freaking so much, we need to get off of it.
So
we can't help ourselves.
I'll go next because that was long. But I will say the Arkham Asylum games or the Batman Arkham Knight games in terms of combat.
That's always one that first whenever someone mentions like combat in games or something. When you first mentioned this topic, that was the first game that came to my head.
Yeah, that was definitely one that also came. This isn't the obscure one that I was talking about.
Of course not.
But no, it's one of those games where I mean, when you play as the hero of every game, you're kind of expected to be thrown into impossible odds and still come out alive, which is amazing and heroic, and they don't know how you do it unless it's the first Modern Warfare, where they kill you and you're like, whoa, they just killed me, which was awesome. Yeah, that game came out in 2007. Yeah. So but I mean,
10 years ago.
Yeah, you're playing as Batman, so it's kind of expected that you can handle any situation because you are Batman. And so just the combat of jumping between the different types of enemies and then upgrading all of your gear to increase the combo length, and it gets to a point where you can kill everyone. That's not the issue. It's how efficiently or how high can I get my combo meter. That's the fun part of the game, is the actual combat aspect of it. The story was also great, but that was one of the things that those games did, I think, extremely well, was the combat. There was a little bit to it, but it was mostly when you added a gadget, to use that gadget was the same, but its upgraded ability kind of gave you more options. So you didn't have to like learn another combo with it. You just kind of just continued with it. And
right.
I think that is those games did a great job. And they did progressively get better, even though story-wise I feel like the last one was the weakest, but in terms of combat it was definitely the best.
I would argue the more they added into that game in terms of like combat stuff, I feel like the more like they watered it down, where they were trying to make it more complex for the sake of it being more complex, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The slow motion.
I think 2 had it best in terms of just the type of enemies you had to deal with.
Yeah,
but it's like when it got to 3, then they added like more types of stuff you had to deal with, and it's like you're kind of defeating the purpose of what the whole point of that combat was. Personally, though, I think the Shadow of Mordor / Shadow of War series did it best in terms of that combat, simply because you had the random captain system that threw a curveball every now and then in terms of all these enemies you have to deal with, while also dealing with the one guy who's like,
you're doing this one. Yeah,
all these people that you're murdering with this one move. Yeah, that captain hates that, and he's now going to whoop your ass. It's like,
No, you're absolutely right. The Shadow of Mordor game was I didn't play the Shadow of War, but Mordor was very good, and that combat kind of goes hand in hand. And whether or not it was better, I don't know. It's different. It's different.
It's different enough where
and
I kind of liked it more.
I will say it didn't feel, for whatever reason, and I can't really quantify it, but it didn't feel as fluid in Shadow of Mordor, and I think it was because like you had so many things that you could do, and there were like kind of janky hitboxes on some of the stuff. It just wasn't quite as polished.
Animation may not have been as fluid as Batman, but I think they did fix that a little bit more in Shadow of War.
Right.
But I think it also had to do with like the more stuff you could do, which you could do
you could do a ton.
And then they even added more crazy stuff you could do in Shadow of War.
It's weird. I don't know why, but to me, like physically, like punching a clown guy in the face so hard that he gets knocked out felt like a weightier kind of combo thing than like slicing some dude's head off.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know
understand that.
why. It's just is one of those mental things. And if I played both of those now, I may feel differently. But just going off of memory, I really felt like when you would punch someone, you'd go ooh, whereas like slicing someone's head off, you kind of did it the first time, but then afterwards you were just like, oh, it's another weird looking like ogre type thing that I just kill now.
Right.
So that's kind of my thoughts on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah. So Marsh, you're up next, friendo.
Oh God, I want to say the new God of War, but I can't
No,
because
no,
we
you can
haven't talked.
absolutely, yeah, you can. No,
I,
you can say the
it,
combat is good.
I would okay. I'm not gonna go into any type of spoilers or anything like that. All, but again, with the new God of War, the more I've been playing it, the more I'm like, it's not like super crazy in depth. Granted, the original games were not super crazy in depth,
Yeah, they were
but it's
mashed
different.
square to win.
They
It
were.
is it's completely different in its own regard of how it does combat. But like I'm at the point where I pretty much maxed out pretty much all the skill trees so far. And I'm like, all right, I'm at a point where it's like I have a firm grasp of everything I can do. And I'm thinking, it's not a lot, but it doesn't need to be any more than this because of the enemy variety of what I've been running into keeps mixing it up where I don't need to have new abilities to deal with it. My repertoire of skills that I've got now seems pretty good. Um, and this is just, using the axe and boy, with his bow and arrow. Like that's it. And I mean, I've heard that you get more stuff later on, which I have known nothing about. Um, but for now, it's like, yeah, this is pretty good. It doesn't need to be Devil May Cry crazy in depth, but that's okay. And I'm having a blast with it.
That is, I mean, I would say all of God of War games had really great combat, but in this one, yeah,
Yes.
I agree. The combat is very good. It's I was afraid that it was going to be slowed down kind of significantly just because of the third person kind of more story that they were going for, but that's not the case. It is
It doesn't
pretty.
feel slow.
No, it's.
I've heard complaints about like enemies from off screen and stuff, and
I think that adds to it personally. I think.
I actually do like it simply because it's you cannot now just block in any direction. You have to be very careful of what you have behind you, which you can dodge out of the way because you've got the indicator, but then also your boy goes look out, something is attacking you basically, and I actually listened to the audio cue first and foremost, which has saved me countless times. And I'm playing on normal, and I have died multiple times, most certain.
Yeah, I definitely think that God of War. I definitely think it's really good. I
It's
really
really
do
good.
like the combat that did. But we will talk more about that
We'll talk about that
later.
when all of us have played it, and then all of us have beaten it.
Right.
Yes.
I actually did beat it today.
You actually beat it?
Nice.
How long?
I don't know. We'll talk about it later. Caleb, you're up.
Okay, fine.
Oh, it's back to me. Oh,
No,
shit.
that's back to you.
Okay, if you can't,
Um,
I can.
Well,
was
I
gonna
have
say-
one that I can. So, just it's not really a cop out, but a little bit. Darkest Dungeon is one
Oh,
that.
I was actually gonna. Yeah, that was not the obscure one, but I was
Right.
going to say Darkest. That's not a cop out. That is an excellent choice.
Yeah,
true.
that's it was really really well done combat in that because it's
It took me so long to get
typical.
you on that game, and then when you got on it, you did not want to
did.
get off that ride. Holy
It was
crap!
like then that was like 200 hours of my
You
life.
spent like a good month just in that game.
Yeah, it was really addicting. Build like doing your party party organizations and everything because it's turn-based combat like an old school RPG, but they do it. You've got 4 people in your party, and you have certain moves that can only be executed in certain positions, and certain moves that are obviously weaker against some enemy types and stronger versus others. And so there's a lot of mix and matching that you can do to be successful with a party creation, and that part was really really fun to me. Kind of theory crafting and strategizing. Okay, well I can put this guy in these positions, and then I'll have these moves available, and then just stomp through the different areas. And I really liked the combat of Darkest Dungeon. It was really good.
Yeah, I think that's a good one for sure.
That's a very good one. Yes.
This one I'll touch on very quickly that I thought had really good combat, but I actually didn't care much for the game. And I didn't even complete it because of Windows Defender Summary. So that's what that noise was for those listening. Was Strider when they redid the newest
Oh, the
Strider.
Metroidvania version of Strider?
Right,
Yeah.
and the combat
Yeah.
was fun. It was fast. You were a double jumping ninja fiend, but I didn't like the game that much. But fighting things was fun, and it's kind of strange because the entire game is fighting things, but it was just very repetitive, and it got to a point where you were so overpowered that things were more annoying than they were a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of a quick one that I thought really did have good combat, despite me not being crazy about it, and that's really all I'll say about that one.
Yeah. I think so. In that same kind, I'll pivot off of that just quickly because we're kind of doing that with games that have a similar kind of style. That 2D like kind of exploration-y, but that type of combat that was part of what you did in Strider, I think is done at its best. Well, maybe not. Pretty close though. It's done extremely well in Dead Cells. Because it has that fluidity and that speed and the option and the different weapons that you have different types of attacks, and so you've got 2 weapons and 2 special abilities, or like a grenade or whatever, two special weapons and 2 regular weapons and a roll, and it's just extremely fast and responsive, very tight controls, and just really, really excellent 2D combat.
Yep. Marsh, you got your next game lined up in your brain? If not, I can stall for you.
Trying to think of a good FPS that's very simple and to the point. That I
Portal.
played.
Bulletstorm.
Not Bulletstorm. No.
Portal.
Not Portal. That doesn't count as an FPS. That's a puzzle game. Come on now.
Doesn't
That is
really
a-
have combat.
Yeah. There's-
I've been, there's a game right now I'm playing right now
right
that
now.
is kind of buggy and is in early access.
For Honor. For Honor
No.
is still in early access.
That game will always be in early access. In my
It's
heart,
like
but damn it,
it's
I
like
still
saying that
play it for some
Gmail's still in
stupid reason.
beta. It was
Right.
forever in beta.
Is Gmail still technically in beta?
No, they pulled it out.
Oh, thank God.
I mean, it's just it was more of a. It got to a point where it's just a joke. They're like, we're always adding new features.
Features. I've been playing a game called Escape from Tarkov. It is a pretty straightforward loot game where eventually they want to do basically like an open world type of stalkerish game where you have a whole map that you go around and get stuff and then get out. But right now the game is cordoned off into sections of the whole map where you go into a certain section, get loot, and then get out and try not to die. Any loot you bring into the game, if you die, you lose it. So it becomes very much a cat and mouse of, do I want to bring in a lot of good gear to survive? But there's the chance that I might die with all that good gear by some dude who's running around with nothing but a hatchet, which that is a thing that I've done to people and have done to me. It's not fun. But it's super simple in what it wants to do. And it's just, you go in and it gives you a whole bunch of abilities of checking how much ammo you have, leaning around corners and all that stuff. And it's just really, 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 really good. But the problem is there's a lot of network errors and all that stuff around it right now that it's just driving me nuts. And I really, really want to love the game, but it's trying so hard not to let me like it.
Kenny, For Honor is not in early access. That was
a joke
That was
because
a joke because
how
the game
much
is broken.
It was literally only this past February, which had been a year then since it had been released, that they released dedicated servers for the game.
Right.
Which you desperately, desperately needed, but it had been so long. And I still play it.
Yes, you
sometimes.
Do. And it's fun watching you play, but it's
the
not
problem is
fun playing.
I'm pretty sure the population on PC is not high at all. Because there are too many times where I am matchmaking against people, and I keep running into the same people, and it's just that shouldn't be happening on a high population group. It shouldn't be at all. It's just never mind. Go, Josh. Next game.
Okay.
Before I start ranting about that fucking game.
You will appreciate this one. XCOM And I will actually
No, I don't appreciate it because that game's a buggy mess every single time I play it.
really, well, I mean, I was gonna group that in with Mario and Rabbids, but not so much. Like, I mean,
Okay.
bugs are not great. In any game, but just the tactical aspect of trying to figure out how to. I actually prefer Mario Rabbids because it was just more fun to play, whereas XCOM was so stress inducing. Like you're tight the whole time because an alien could just decide to kill you just for the heck. I mean, just on a whim for no reason, out of the shadows, flank you, and then blow up your entire team that you've kept for like 12 levels, and they're super buff, and
That
then
game's
you
bullshit.
and then you never play the game again, which is
That-
exactly what happened. I have not played XCOM after that happened.
Every single time, I'm like, yeah, I want to play XCOM. Yeah, that seemed like a fun game. I wonder why I stopped playing. 4 hours later, 5 hours later, I lose my entire squad to some stupid
Right.
bullshit
So
thing. I'm
it's
like,
stupid, right?
can't
But
do it.
just the tactical cover, managing. I mean, I know that the Fire Emblem games, and there's been a lot of games where you kind of have to manage your move set and things like that. But this was, it just felt a little bit different, and the fact that you could kind of use the terrain to your advantage and not just get to someone or hide behind something. It wasn't just, oh, I can't walk straight across because there's a tree in the way. Whereas, no, you could use the tree as cover, or you have perks that allow you to do stuff with surrounding areas. And so that aspect of it, I thought for those types of games, those, because really Mario and Rabbids was XCOM light. It was fun, and it added a lot to it.
But they both work because just the basic combat of that game is so simple to understand and so easy to get into. And then as you progress through the game, they then add on to the combat of adding perks to help you move around. But the basic combat itself of move here, get into position, shoot gun, it works. It works super well. It's just all the bullshit RNG around it that drives
Right,
me nuts.
there is a ton of, yeah. I mean, RNG is inherently like, it's not even needed. It feels like it's required for some reason, and I don't know why.
Buggy inherent RNG that can really screw you over.
Yeah,
is
especially
bad.
XCOM, especially when you will literally be on the square next to them with a sniper rifle, and it'll say like 98% accurate, and then you will miss, and it doesn't happen.
I'm so upset right now. Just-
Like you would think, like, oh, it happens 2%
that's
of the
happened
time.
to me, and that happened exactly to me.
It'll
and I
happen, like-
lost like 2 people.
Right, it'll
because
happen
of that.
2 or 3 shots in a row, and you're like, I'm
And I'm like,
next
this
to
has
him.
this has to happen, or I'm gonna lose like 2 people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Pray to the RNG, Jesus God. Just no, it's
Pretty-
not. Oh, there goes everybody. Oh, and he panicked and he just shot that. Oh, no.
Right. All right, Caleb, I've got 1.5 more games in mind.
I'm,
Okay.
now I'm sorry, I'm now very depressed.
Right,
I've
this
got,
is 2 games in a row
I've got-
that Marshall like.
So I've got one that I can mention really quickly because it's not super complicated, and then another one that's maybe a little more out there. So the one I want to mention quickly is Jamestown, which is a shoot 'em up
Oh yeah,
that
yeah.
I haven't played in a long
I
time.
thought
Came out
someone was
a
going to
while
bring
ago.
up Contra, but yeah, Jamestown, that makes sense.
Jamestown,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
Jamestown it's top down. You control a ship, shoot 'em up, bullet hell kind of game. Really, really well done. You have the different ships that you control in the game have vastly different attack abilities or attack properties, and so it makes it really interesting to play through with the different ships because they have different strengths and can be really, really fun. And the game just looks absolutely gorgeous. The art style of it is amazing. So I really liked Jamestown. I thought they did a lot of things really well with the plain shoot 'em up genre. And then
Ikaruga, I would tack onto that one. That was the one where you would have the red and
Yeah,
blue. It was the exact same where you'd shoot up. I mean, totally different art style. But if somebody shot a red bullet at you and you swap sides, you would just absorb the bullet. So it made a lot of. There was some sort of tactical need to switch ships as opposed to just dodge bullets the whole time. And sometimes you couldn't dodge them. You had to actually switch. But then sometimes enemies weren't affected by the color that they were shooting out. So you would have to be vulnerable in order to hurt them. And so that was that Jamestown made me think of it. But I did
that's a really
enjoy
good
it.
example. Ikaruga did that amazingly well. That game is really hard.
Is it
that is a really
awesome?
good shoot 'em up,
Yeah.
Ikaruga for sure. I guess you can do your one and then I'll do my other one.
Okay, so
unless you
My
wanted to do them back to back.
well, no, that's fine.
Right.
The one that I was thinking of that actually kind of made me think of this topic was Tales of Symphonia, and
Mm, okay.
that I
Yeah, I
think
never played
has
that.
one of the best combat mechanics I think in almost any game. And I mean, on like
And
it.
not just an RPG, but just any game in general.
Well, so there's the RPG element of having to grind and get gear and things like that, and then you can sneak up on enemies and attack them. But the thing is, once when you get into an enemy and then it goes into like the weird circle, it's actually a button mash. So you will have to run around and attack the person when you're in this mode, and also you have to control the AI, whether or not it's assigning them tasks to kind of do things. But then you can also, I think, like it's been a long time, but you can trigger them to like heal you or cast spells and stuff like that. But it's a hack and slash once when you activate the combat, and it gets. I mean, the skill tree and things like that are all part of your typical RPG, so it's like it can get crazy, but it all scales really well, and it does get grindy at times and things like that. But the combat just fit the game so well, and a lot of the Tales games do this, but Tales of Symphonia was the first time I ever experienced it, and it's just an amazing 2-disc GameCube game that was just it kind of I was very anti turn-based strategy games for a long time. But then this game came and it was
Wait, you
like,
never liked them?
well,
I'm
I mean,
kind of shocked.
Pokemon changed my attitude, but when I
Oh,
was
of course it did.
like, but I mean, when I first as a kid, it's like, no, why can't I hack and slash my way through this? But after that, I really I think Tales of Symphonia just it was just amazing. It felt fluid. What you could do later on in the game like felt natural because the progression that you had, the story was great, and it just fit that game so well. But that's my secret game that I really do think has some of the best combat mechanics to come around in a long time.
They had the same kind of mechanics in Vesperia too, right? Tales of Vesperia.
Yeah, almost all the Tales games
Most
have
of the Tales
similar.
games,
Yeah,
yeah. Because yeah, I agree that that is a really awesome way to do the combat of an RPG, where you actually have to input the moves that you've learned through other means, throughout the game. And the other really awesome thing is you're talking about controlling the AI. Excuse me. If you have a buddy, you can actually have a friend play couch co-op that game with you. You get into combat, and then that friend can control your other characters in combat.
that's
Because
cool.
I did that with Stuart.
Oh, that's super
awesome.
cool.
Because Stuart was playing Vesperia, and he's like, "Oh, I gotta show you this game." Like, he tosses me a controller. I'm like, "What the hell are you doing? It's an RPG. Like, this
Yeah.
is
It's
definitely
Like, what
not
are
a
you
game I can
talking
play
about?
with you."
Yeah.
And we get into combat. He's like, "Look, you can control the dude, and you can like do all the moves. It's just like a combat, like a hack and slash. It's like, this is
That's great.
amazing."
That's cool.
Oh,
So
hold
that
on.
was really awesome.
You just reminded me. Speaking of hack and slashes, a game that's actually going to be re-released for the PS4 soonish. I want to say maybe in May. I have to double check. That came out originally for PS3, Dragon's Crown, which was an homage to the Dungeons and Dragons hack and slash game. And
Yeah, it's a beat 'em up.
yes, and it's one of the best beat 'em ups I had played in years. One of the few I had played in a very long time, actually, because most beat 'em ups actually kind of died when arcades died. Sad to say, but God, that game was so much fun. It's so simple, and there's actually leveling up and all that stuff.
Yeah, they added
And-
a lot of other stuff like some quests that you could do and
Yeah.
secret objectives within the levels.
Yeah, and going back to previous levels and then going through a side route. And
right.
one of my favorite bosses, which I never got to, but I really wanted to, which I'm hoping to do again for the PS4 version, is there's a boss where all it's an homage to Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Is it
where
a
you
bunny?
fight- Yes.
Yes. Oh, that's great.
And literally the allies that show up are all the knights. And
That's
you
awesome.
fight the bunny. It's so great.
That's
It's
really
just this
awesome.
little piece of shit bunny, but yeah, he kicks ass.
Wallace brought up Arma 3.
Oh yeah.
And yes, the closest I ever got to playing Arma 3 was the Arma 2 mod, Daisy. Days. And that was real in depth. That was almost too
I didn't even know you
realistic.
played that.
For a hot second, I did.
Yeah, interesting.
Died real fast, a lot, and then I did not play again.
That sounds
I
about
mean,
right.
it's like
Yeah.
collectively, like, because it was like 40 minutes of me running around, and then just insta death, and then I didn't realize everything that you could do. And then as I learned more of what I could do, I learned that there was so much more that I didn't know, and then kind of got overwhelmed and then stopped playing.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I
But
kind of wish that one of us did enjoy that very different style of game because I feel like we're all of us kind of like the same types of feel, and the Arma games especially are that like not even so
Military
much the
sim.
hyper realism
Yeah.
part, but it's much more of it's such a simulator type game because
Yeah.
there's so many things that you can do and so many things that you have to keep in mind, and it's done really well and people love it, but that is just not my kind of thing.
It's kind of
Yeah.
like it's kind of why I like Escape from Tarkov. It's kind of close to that, but it's not near to it yet. Like
Not
they're
nearly as
still they're
complicated.
still adding in game mechanics to that game. Like and when it comes to opening up a door, like there are only two things you could do right now: open it normally or breach it by kicking it open. They haven't even implemented in using grenades like concussion grenade
or
like,
using
toss
handles. When are they going to implement using handles?
Oh, that's what they do normally right now. Just open the door.
I will. So I would say I think the person who gets closest to playing those games is probably you, Marsh, with the Sniper Elite games. The only time that I feel like we've enjoyed the Sniper Elite
Those-
games is when we
Those
did
aren't
that.
even simulators,
Those
so-
aren't
No,
even
no, they're
really
not.
sims
Well,
at
that's
all.
what I
They're-
was saying. It's like, but
Yeah.
if you want, you can ramp up the difficulty as high as you can.
Absolutely.
Realistic.
So the
But yeah.
But then that game becomes
your point, though.
chore,
Right.
I think.
Right, but that's what I was saying. That is the closest we've gotten, and it's just you. But in terms of
Yeah.
actual like legit simulator games, the best one is Goat Simulator.
Stop.
it's
Nice.
it is the most realistic experience of being a goat that has ever existed
I'm
in,
very
in the video
I'm
game
I'm very
my
disappointed in your
my other one that I wanted to mention, it's maybe kind of like simulator in the complicated style. Guns of Icarus.
That was
Unfortunately, that
it's-
game's
yeah.
dead. Last I
It's dead.
checked.
Every
It's so very dead.
It's
every game
super
is
dead.
dead that we're not playing. But
The game is so very dead.
Guns of
Holy
Icarus,
crap!
we had so much fun with that
That game, the combat was absolutely ridiculous because it's airship combat, and
It's
it
air
played
pirates.
exactly as silly and like obtusely as you think it would when you say airship combat.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just flying these two like.
I want to
blimps
say there's
in
like
the
another
sky,
game
and
that's
it-
being developed right now that's
I
kind of
think-
in that vein. I could be.
Well, I
thinking of something
mean,
else.
Dreadnought
maybe I'm thinking
kind
of-
of was similar in that,
Sort of, but you're only
not
playing
at
as
all with the
one ship.
multiplayer kind of thing.
Yeah.
Dreadnought was ship combat, but
Maybe I'm
oh my
thinking
God.
Black Wake, which is a pirate's actual sea.
Yeah, I
pirate.
think Blackwake is what you're thinking of, which I
Yeah.
haven't tried yet. But
Seemed interesting. Yes.
oh man, Guns of Icarus was so much fun because you've got one person who's the pilot, and you don't have like third-person camera of the whole ship. You're first-person camera
Yeah.
behind the big wheel, and you're like spinning your head around.
Yeah, and the wheels taking up a third. Yeah, and I
Someone-
love that.
Someone please tell me if I'm about to hit a rock in front
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, man.
Oh my god.
So good, but and you're fighting another airship, and so you got your other buddies on the guns, and then things catch fire, and you're running around trying to put the ship out, and oh my god, that
Yeah, Guns
that
of
game
Icarus. That was
so
so much fun,
complicated.
and it was
so much fun.
the great thing about it was like, yeah, you could, grab a cannon, but if you're the guy who's trying to repair things, you don't do as much damage. So there was a real incentive to kind of pick a class that
Play
you
your
wanted.
role.
Right, exactly. And so
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun, especially when all four of us would play. That was
my
just. And then if something's on
was-
fire and you're shouting at Marshall to come and repair it.
I swear to God, the only thing I remember of that game, I don't remember any of the scenery. I just remember looking at stuff being broken.
right, exactly. Yeah, just
And I'm
on
just
fire.
like, why aren't you doing it?
Yeah.
I am
Dude.
doing it.
That game, that game is so fun,
That
and
is-
I don't know how else like. I don't know, like the success of those kinds of games where you have to have a team and you're all controlling like one kind
Yeah.
of ship. It's not done often, and I think it's just super hard to
It's a
do.
bummer.
And there's a very niche audience who really wants to do that long term because you can't just hop on and play a game by yourself. You have to get other people together, or you have to be able to like make other friends playing the game and then do it with them. And I don't know, it's so fun though. I would love to see another game in that style.
Very much so. I mean, yeah, that that kind of game is pretty niche, though. I must say
it is.
Yeah, but it sadly, from what I've heard, the new Pirates game isn't very good, so we won't talk about that anymore. The half game that I have is kind of like there's a lot of combat in it, and it does things a little bit differently, but it's a half game because I don't really count it because I feel like Tales of Symphonia was my big one, but then I thought of this one, so I'm just saying it anyways. Is Persona 5. They really did bring up the turn-based. I like that there isn't a timer to it. It's kind of like you think about it. You can attack enemies before you get into it, but if an enemy jumps on you, then you're at a disadvantage right at the beginning, which is kind of neat. And then also the more you fight an enemy, the more you learn about him, and so you can learn his weaknesses. And one thing I like is that the type of enemy will always have the same weakness. So if you keep dying from this enemy and you used a lightning attack and then you died, you'll know that lightning may not be what works on him. So then you could just go to an ice move, and then it's like when they get crit from an ice move, you're like, oh, that's awesome. So there's a inherent learning from death without actually like constantly saving the game and like having to like reload and look up a map or a strategy guide or something like that. And so I really did like it. Is turn based. It does get a little bit more complicated, especially when you knock someone out. You can follow it up with like kind of a combo, but not really. But it's a lot of fun. It's very good. But I don't. That's not the first game that I would think of when I think of best mechanics. I think in terms of turn-based strategy, they did an extremely good job with this game without it being so boring that you're just kind of sitting there the whole time waiting to be attacked. It's very fast and very fluid. A little complicated, but not overly complicated. So that's my half. That was my half game that I thought of.
Nice.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention the entire time because I was looking up Guns of Icarus Alliance, which apparently is a completely different game that they're making.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine.
I'm just like because I was looking at it, like, wait, is this like a new game?
Yeah.
It is. Oh my god.
Cool.
I don't. But it's like PVE. I don't know if there is PvP though. It came out last year, apparently, March.
Less cool. But...
Oh, why no? If it came out last year, then.
I mean.
Marsh, do you have any more games?
Off the top of my head, all I can think about is Boy.
Okay.
That's literally
Super
that's
Hot
been stuck
is
in
one
my
that
head.
did
Well,
interesting combat. Because it's a first-person shooter puzzle game, but it actually does use combat, but time moves forward as your character moves. And so I thought that was an interesting one. I will say, though, that the first, well, not first, but one of the best combat in a third-person shooter still is Gears of War for me. I just love how heavy everything feels. Like blowing someone apart with the shotgun is amazing. The cover system was, the cover system was new, and it was a iteration on what they'd been trying to do with other games, and they did it really well and made it fast. And the boom shot, like blowing people up, torque bow, like just the weapons in that game felt so visceral, and the cover system and like peeking over cover, blind firing, and just all of the combat and rolling and everything in that game was so fun and so meaty. And I put so much time into Gears of War 1, 2, and 3. Really, really enjoyed those.
And then they just wouldn't let that series die.
Yeah.
I
guess I'm not surprised, but at the same time, none of us mentioned anything like super simple like Sonic or the original Mario.
Okay, I don't like Sonic. I'm just gonna say that for the record. I think Sonic is a bad game. It's always been a terrible game. I don't understand why the idea of going fast in that game makes any sense, because you try and go fast in the original Sonic games, you're going to run into spikes. Always.
Spikes facing this way.
Always. It's just, if you try and go fast, you're going to get punched. So you have to go slow.
Kenny brought up Super Hot, which is a great game.
We just talked about
literally
Super
just
Hot.
said that.
We literally just said Super Hot, man.
When did you say Super? I
just said it like super quick before Gears of War.
Oh, you did say that. Yes. Oh my God, totally. Oh, that was a classic Marshall. Absolute Marshall.
Because in the background I was going super hot.
Oh,
Super. Yeah.
I thought you were saying grind, or like I thought that you were just doing.
Ooh.
Yeah. um, yeah. Okay. So that's all I have for today. We can answer a viewer question if you guys don't have any other.
Why is Sonic terrible? Oh,
Um,
I can
No.
tell
Yeah.
you.
No.
no,
So
I'll say watch speedruns of Sonic. It's really cool, and they actually do get to go fast
They
because
get-
they break the game halfway through and get to do things that weren't intended.
of course.
And there's also what was the was it Freedom something? What was the game that was in the last
Oh yeah.
AGDQ,
Yeah.
Josh? And
It
I told you
was.
to watch it. And it
It
was
was
like
actually
amazing.
two. Was it two? But yeah, it was basically it was like Freedom Planet or something like that.
Freedom Planet. I
It
think
was
that was
okay, but it
I think
was
it's Freedom.
it was literally it started off as like a Sonic mod, and then they
Yeah.
couldn't get the rights to it, and then or they kind of got like a don't do this from Sega or something like that, and so they were
Yeah.
like, all right, well
Don't
we'll
do this.
change some of the sprites around and add some power ups, and it's a much cooler game because of it. But it was
Yeah.
like that's kind of how it was originally intended.
I actually,
It's done really well,
It
and
is.
the speed run from the last GDQ event was freaking amazing for Freedom Planet. And so if you want a Sonic like game that plays well and actually gets to go fast, check that one out.
I think I may do my top runs, a video of just my top runs from the previous AGDQ, because it just
Oh yeah.
having
There
the
were a lot of
couch.
really good
There's so many really good ones, but just having the couch commentary is so helpful for someone who doesn't always keep up with speedruns. But I know like my brother will always watch Sunshine speedrun, so he can basically comment on what's
Right.
going on. But for someone like me who kind of like I mean, I do enjoy speedruns, but I kind of like the fun and festive atmosphere that AGDQ provides. But,
Right. Yeah, a good couch commentary can make a game that you know nothing about still really
Final
interesting.
Fantasy couch commentary, I think from
Oh
like
my God.
2016, it was like an 8-hour video, and it was
I've watched it.
awesome.
I've watched it twice.
oh my god.
No, it's so good.
love that.
It is
It's
really
so-
good. It is
so good.
insane.
I love that. I literally have like because I watch a lot of things with a headset on while I'm like doing chores and whatever, so I'm not literally sitting down in front of my computer watching something for 8 hours like eating popcorn. I'm doing multiple things, but yeah, I have sat through that entire speed run twice. It's really good. The commentary from that was
It
so
is.
spot on.
Nice.
All right, so our viewer question of this week is: do any of you guys
do
want to
you want-
watch Jurassic World 2?
Nope.
I didn't know that was a thing.
And
Yeah.
so far, so the Jurassic World 1 was good enough. It didn't do anything crazy, but it was a really fun movie.
It's fine. It's just.
It was
Yeah.
definitely the second best of the 4 Jurassic Park movies to have existed.
I can agree with
probably.
that statement.
The
yes.
order is Jurassic Parks 1,
1,
4,
World.
3, 2, because 2, well, actually 2 has the best scene with the little girl doing gymnastics, and then she kicks the rat.
you.
But so far for the trailers for Jurassic World 2, it does not look very good in my opinion, and I hope that it's good. I never want a movie to be bad, but from the trailers with Chris Pratt kind of look like he's fake running away from like the plume of volcanic ash, and then
Oh, that's right. That's what
it
it's
just
about,
it,
yeah.
it just I just don't know what the movie is really even about. I just don't know. I just don't know.
A Jurassic World.
Um,
The
By the
second-
way, what will next week's topic be?
we have no idea.
so if you
We
guys
usually
have
figure this out like 5 minutes before we go on.
5
That's
minutes
not
is an
true.
exaggeration.
That's not true. Same
Oftentimes
day.
it's around
Like 3.
2 or 3 in the afternoon when we figure it out, which sucks. We would love to do more.
Same day.
I mean, luckily we all have just played a stupid amount of video games to be able to kind of like just like have a topic and go from there. But if you guys have any idea,
Anything in the news that piques your interest, by all means, we'll talk about it. 'cause
yeah, like
that-
leave a
things happen
comment.
in the news.
If there's a specific topic that you'd like for us to talk about, or you feel a certain way about a game or something like that, and you want us to comment on it, let us know. We are small enough to give you the individual attention that you really deserve.
We absolutely
you really
are.
deserve. I will say though, for the record, I'm actually not going to be here for next week's podcast because I'm going to be in the Bahamas. Because
All right. Well, Marshall won't be here. They don't have the internet in the Bahamas.
Well, not good internet.
Not good.
but
And that is absolutely true.
That probably is true.
Internet by
Um,
coconuts.
It was mentioned earlier. Kenny pointed out that we had omitted our second channel that we have from
That's a
our
whoops.
description of social media stuff. So thank you very much for that. And for anyone else who is watching,
No wonder
if
no
you-
one watches
if you-
our plays. God, that
if you are
explains so
interested
much.
in just like watching us, the random stuff that we stream, because we stream random games on our Twitch, and if you don't catch that live or don't catch the VOD, we do have random respawn plays as our second YouTube channel, and it's just a stream rip.
It's
They're
all
not
of our
edited or
VODs that
anything,
are on
but it's-
Twitch, and it's basically so that way it doesn't clutter up the main page. Which hey, our podcast is cluttering up the page, so it's
Right,
like,
but
our podcasts are
It's
like
thoughtful content. It's not
Yes,
just
of
us.
course. It's just it's not just us just dicking around playing a
Right.
video.
not
game,
just random raw gameplay, because they're not edited or
course.
anything like that. It's just the upload
Right.
onto the second channel. So if you want to see any other recent games we've been playing and streaming, that's where you can find that information.
Of
We
course.
we've learned through the magic of YouTube analytics that most of our
Low
let's
effort
plays,
content.
yeah,
Yeah.
our low effort content. The podcast is actually different. This has been pretty awesome, but
Yeah.
some of
That's our
the
consistent content.
Right,
Then
yes.
Whether or not it's high grade or low grade is up to viewer choice.
but our let's plays don't necessarily get a lot of views, and we didn't want to clutter up this channel and just kind of annoy everyone with content that doesn't seem to matter. So that's why we
Yeah.
made the second channel. It really is just a way if you really enjoy us for some reason. I don't know why. No, just- but yeah, so that's
Everybody
what that
would.
second channel's there for. And I will add it to the descriptions. I've totally forgot.
It's fine.
But we actually, Kenny, one of the things. Okay, so this is the end of the pod. We're kind of done with the topic, but an idea that I'm actually working on that I hinted at very weirdly. But I'm going to start a new series real soon, and I'm going to be taking a game that I've really haven't put any effort or even played, and then I'm going to live stream it daily, and then so hopefully you can see how I get better, and then kind of do a mashup of what I did wrong, and it'll act as like a tip series and how I kind of got better throughout the series. And
That
the
makes
first
sense. Yeah.
the first game that I plan on playing is Fortnite. I've never played Fortnite, and
I was about to say,
my goal in Fortnite is to
get good.
is to be the last one standing. So when I do that, I've got another game in mind, but that is the game that'll kick off that series. And so I'll stream that every day, and
Let
then
me know,
I'll
man. I'll join you.
yeah, and then I'll put together a highlight reel, like a weekly highlight reel, but then also try and show what I did wrong and how you can be better than me if you were just starting out with that game. And we'll see how that goes. And if that
Yeah, one
works
of the-
out well, then we'll keep
One
doing
of the
it.
best ways to get better at something like that is to go back over and watch the footage
Yeah.
of you playing, so you can comment on and see, oh, well, that was dumb. I should have done this.
Right.
So that I think that will be really.
I
cool.
will say
And,
one of my favorite series ever that I ever watched was Total Biscuit's I Suck at StarCraft 2, where literally it's when StarCraft 2 came out, and and everyone's trying to play, and he sucked at StarCraft 2, and he just went over all of his game footage that he had played, and like, this is what I'm doing wrong, this is what should be happening right now at this minute mark, this is what my opponent's doing, this is what he's doing wrong, and what I'm doing right, etc., etc. And like, when I was playing that game a lot, I took a lot of advice from that, and I actually got better. I never got out of gold because I never put enough time into it. But if I really wanted to, I could probably get into plat if I really wanted to. But yeah, that's just
I couldn't. I'm so bad.
Yes.
just
I'm awful at that.
RTS is.
But
I'm
yes.
at
But,
school now.
I will stream. And so it'll actually be consistent. There will be a legit streaming schedule. And I mean, it won't be the only game I play, but there'll be like dedicated days where I'll be doing like I don't. It's tentatively called Zero to Hero because I love the movie Hercules and I like rhymes and I'm not creative. So that's the
And James
tentative-
Woods is in that, and he's great.
Right, exactly. But so that's the idea behind that. It'll be streamed on Twitch. It'll be brought over to the Random Respawn Plays channel, and then the highlighted stuff and the stuff with tips will be on our main channel. So, just watch everything, all three of our things,
All
Just
people-
watch
all the
everywhere.
time,
Just
and
watch
Watch it all.
and hopefully if this works out well, and we
donate $1 million. Just
and then
$1
all three
million.
of us can do this all the time and not just me. But yeah, so that is it for today. That was that was it.
It was fun.
Kenny, Wallace,
It's been so
Angry
long.
Daniel, if you're still there, thanks. Everyone else who watched but didn't party in the chat, thank you so much for watching. I'm Vajosh Raptor. That's Calebite and Grand Marshal. We will definitely, Calebite and I will be here next week with a topic.
sure.
Hopefully it's a topic requested. If not, we'll figure something out.
And I'm gonna get drunk in the Bahamas. Hell
And
yeah.
Marshall is going to get drunk at the Bahamas. So that's about it. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you next week. All right, bye.
Bye.